Do you remember the smell of a house that was truly clean? Not that sharp chemical smell that hits you in the face the moment you walk into a store today. No, I mean the clean that smelled like morning air and lemon and something warm that had been wrung out and hung on the line before the sun got too high. I mean the clean that lived in your grandmother's house or your mother's or maybe your own. Back when clean was something you made with your hands, not something you bought in a plastic bottle. Do you remember when the cleaning cabinet under the kitchen sink held maybe 4 things? A box of baking soda, a jug of white vinegar, a bar of soap your grandmother might have made herself out back from lard and wood ash and rainwater, and a canister of borax that had the picture of 20 mules on the front and had been sitting in American kitchens since before your mother's mother was born. That's where I want to take you today. Back to the cabinet under the sink. Back to the Monday morning laundry and the Saturday scrub and the Tuesday iron. Back to the woman who kept a house spotless on almost nothing, who never once stepped into an aisle full of 47 different products all claiming to do the same thing. She didn't need them. She knew something those aisle signs don't tell you. I'm Grandma Marie, and I want to share with you today 15 of the old cleaning tricks I still swear by, every single one of them born from an era of hardship, raised by women who turned almost nothing into something that could make a house feel safe and proud and loved. 15 tricks, 4 pantry staples, and 0 things you need to drive to a store to find. Stay with me all the way to number 1, because number 1 is the trick that nobody was ever willing to put a price on, and once you hear what it really is, you'll understand why the people who sold us our cleaning products never wanted us to know it. But before we get there, let me say something I want you to hold on to for the next little while. What these women did wasn't desperate, it wasn't backward, it wasn't something to feel sorry about or embarrassed by, it was ingenuity. It was science born in a kitchen without a degree. It was wisdom that has outlasted every fad cleaner and every spray bottle and every television advertisement that ever aired between 1950 and right now. The trick that got you here, the one that put a clean table under clean elbows every night, that trick was yours. It belonged to your family. And today we're going to remember it together. Let's start at the very beginning. Let's start with the thing that was in every kitchen, that cost almost nothing, that had been working since long before our grandmothers were born. Number 15, white vinegar and water on the windows. You remember this. A spray bottle, or maybe just a rag soaked in a bowl, half white vinegar, half water, and then instead of a paper towel, a piece of crumpled up newspaper. You'd ball it up in your hand, spray the window and wipe, and what you got was glass so clear it looked like the window wasn't there at all. No streaks, no lint, just light coming through clean. The reason it worked wasn't a mystery. White vinegar is acidic, and that mild acid cuts right through the mineral deposits and the grease that fingers and weather leave on glass. The newspaper, which has a tighter weave than paper towel, buffed the surface without shedding a single fiber. Your grandmother didn't know the chemistry, she just knew it worked. And it did. I still do this today. Every window in my house, I buy the big jug of white vinegar at the grocery store for under $2, and a bottle of it lasts me months. If the smell bothers you, and it bothered some people, especially when they first started, you can add a squeeze of lemon juice to the mix, and within about 5 minutes of the glass drying, the smell is gone and what's left is just clean. Number 14, baking soda on the carpet. Before there were carpet powders in tin canisters with flower pictures, before there were enzyme sprays and foam formulas, there was baking soda. You'd shake it straight from the box, light and even like you were dusting a cake over the carpet, and you'd leave it for 15 minutes if the smell was mild, or overnight if something had really settled in. A wet dog, a spilled glass of milk from 3 days ago that somebody forgot to mention. Then you'd vacuum it up and the room would smell like nothing, which is exactly what clean smells like. Baking soda works because it is alkaline. Odors are mostly acidic, and when an alkaline powder meets an acidic smell, it neutralizes it. Not masks, it neutralizes it. There's no scent left behind. No artificial lavender, no ocean breeze, just the absence of the problem. That was always the old way. Solve the problem, don't cover it up. By the 1970s, baking soda had become so trusted in American homes that it was routinely added to laundry as a booster to brighten whites and soften fabrics. Before that, it had already been living in kitchen cabinets for generations, doing exactly what it had always done. Your mother kept a box in the refrigerator with the top folded back. You probably still do. Number 13, salt on a fresh spill. This one is old enough that a woman named Lydia Maria Child put it in her book in 1833, The American Frugal Housewife, which was the practical housekeeping guide that thousands of American women read and trusted. She wrote that salt on a fresh spill would absorb moisture and hold the stain from setting while you gathered yourself to deal with it properly. That's still true. It's always been true. You spill red wine or tomato soup or the beet juice from your grandmother's pickled beets. You don't run for the commercial stain remover first. You reach for the salt shaker, you pour it on generously while the stain is still wet, you let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes. The salt draws the moisture up out of the fabric the way it draws moisture out of anything. Cucumber, eggplant, a fresh piece of meat, then you brush it away and treat whatever's left. I think about the dinner tables of another era when I think about this trick. The Sunday tablecloth, white or near white, that came out every week after church and went back in the drawer pressed and folded on Sunday night. Those women could not afford to lose that cloth. They protected it with what they had, and what they had was the salt cellar that sat right there on the table with them. Number 12, club soda on a carpet stain. Now this one has an interesting history, because club soda, plain carbonated water, was something that housewives discovered almost by accident. The carbonation, those tiny bubbles rising up fast, lifts the stain particles from the carpet fibers before they can bond. You don't rub. You pour a small amount on the stain and blot, press gently with a clean cloth, and lift. The rule that never changed from any era: never rub a fresh stain. Rubbing spreads it and drives it deeper into the fiber. This is something every woman in a cotton house dress with a dish towel over her shoulder knew without being told. Number 11, lemon and salt on the cutting board. I want you to picture a wooden cutting board, not the kind with the rubber feet and the juice groove and the brand name burned into the side, a plain wooden board, maybe 12 by 16 inches, the kind that sat on the counter in every kitchen I ever knew when I was growing up. After you cut onions on it, or raw chicken, or anything with a smell, what did you do? You cut a lemon in half. You dipped the cut side into a small pile of coarse salt, and you scrubbed. The acid in the lemon breaks down the bacteria and neutralizes the odors. The salt, coarse salt, not fine because you need the grit, scrubs the surface clean without scratching the wood. When you rinse it with hot water, the board looks and smells like it was just made. This still works. It works in 2026 exactly the way it worked in 1946. The lemon doesn't know what year it is. The salt doesn't care what the grocery store shelves look like. Chemistry is chemistry, and a woman who understood her ingredients could clean almost anything she touched. Number 10, cornstarch on a grease stain. This one, I'm telling you, is the one that will surprise you if you've never tried it. You get a grease stain on your shirt, cooking oil, bacon fat, salad dressing, whatever it was, and your first instinct is to reach for water. Don't. Water and oil do not like each other, and water on a fresh grease stain can actually push the oil further into the fiber. You sprinkle cornstarch straight from the box onto the stain. You leave it not 2 minutes, 15 minutes at least, 20 or 30 for a stain that's been sitting. And here's what's happening while you wait. Cornstarch is made up of countless microscopic pockets, and each one draws in oil the way a sponge draws in water. As the cornstarch fills with grease, it changes color. You can see it darkening right in front of you if you look. When it's done its work, you brush it away and most of the grease comes with it. Then you wash the garment as you normally would. Women learned this one the hard way, through ruined clothes and the kind of trial and error that has no YouTube video and no comment section. They learned it because they couldn't afford to lose the shirt or the dress or the good apron. So they paid attention, they watched, they remembered, and they passed it down. Number 9, chalk on a grease stain on delicate fabric. This is the sister to the cornstarch trick, and it's even older. Plain white blackboard chalk works by the same principle as cornstarch. It draws the oil out of the fiber. You rub the chalk into the stain, you leave it overnight, and in the morning you brush it away, and the stain goes with it. The reason chalk is especially useful is that it's gentler than any rubbing or scrubbing, which makes it perfect for the fabrics that cannot take a treatment. The old homemaker kept a piece of chalk in the laundry room for exactly this kind of emergency. Not in the schoolroom, in the laundry room. Number 8, vinegar in the rinse cycle for towels. Here is something that happened in 10 million American laundry rooms. When towels start to smell even after they've been washed, That sour, mildewy smell that tells you the towel never quite dried fast enough. The answer was to run them first in hot water, with 1 cup of white vinegar and no detergent. Then run them again with a cup of baking soda. Then dry them immediately and completely. What the vinegar does is break down the mildew and the soap scum that has built up inside the fibers over time. What the baking soda does is neutralize what's left. You're not masking the smell, you're removing the cause of it. The towels come out smelling like nothing, which means they smell clean, which is exactly correct. In the old days, vinegar went into the rinse water of the wringer washer for the same reason. Half a cup to a full cup of white vinegar softens the fabric and removes soap residue that a single rinse in hard water couldn't always get out. It was a fabric softener before fabric softener was a thing you could buy. Number 7, the sock on the hand for baseboards. I love this one because it is so simple and so perfectly sensible that you wonder why anyone ever decided we needed a different way to do it. You take a clean cotton sock and slip it over your hand like a glove. You dip it lightly in a solution of water and a little white vinegar, and then you run your hand along the baseboards. Your fingers work into the corners and the grooves. The sock gets into the detail of the molding where any flat tool cannot go. You control the pressure, light on old painted wood, firmer on a scuffed-up section that needs more work. When the sock is dirty, you drop it in the wash. You don't throw it away, you don't buy a replacement, you wash it and use it again. This is exactly the kind of thing those old housekeeping books were full of. Ingenuity that looked simple because it had been refined over generations. The right tool was usually something that was already in the house. It was only later that we were convinced the right tool was something we had to buy. Number 6, boiling water and baking soda for the drain. Before there was a bottle of chemical drain cleaner under every sink, there was this. You'd boil a full pot of water. You'd pour it down the drain slowly. Then you'd pour half a cup of baking soda down the drain and let it sit for 5 minutes. Then you'd pour in 1 cup of white vinegar and cover the drain and let the fizz and the pressure work for 10 more minutes. Then you'd follow with more boiling water. This doesn't fix a deep clog. I'll be honest with you about that. But for regular maintenance, for the slow drain that's just carrying a little more soap scum than it can handle, this works. The combination of baking soda and vinegar creates that foaming reaction that eats away at the buildup on the inside of the pipe. Grandmothers did this on a regular schedule, the way we put oil in our car. Not when the drain failed, before it failed. That's the difference in the old housekeeping. It was preventive. You did the small thing consistently so you never faced the big problem. Number 5, vinegar and water in the microwave. Now, a lot of you remember when the microwave came into American homes in a real way, through the 1970s and the early 1980s, and almost immediately it became the hardest appliance in the kitchen to keep clean because nobody wanted to scrub it. The old women adapted their old tricks. You put equal parts water and white vinegar in a microwave-safe bowl. You run the microwave for about 5 minutes. The steam that fills the inside of that box loosens everything. Every splatter of tomato sauce, every exploded piece of potato, everything baked onto the walls. Then you open the door and wipe with a damp cloth, and it comes clean without a single drop of spray cleaner and without a single hard scrub. The steam does the work. You supply the patience. That was always the arrangement. Number 4, olive oil and lemon juice for wood furniture. Forget the furniture spray in the yellow can. Forget the polish that smells like a factory. 2 parts olive oil to 1 part lemon juice, applied with a soft cloth and buffed until the wood shines. That is all the wood in your house will ever need. The olive oil moisturizes the wood and restores its luster. The lemon oil naturally occurring in fresh lemon juice cleans the surface. The result is wood that looks nourished because it is nourished. Not coated, not masked, fed. I have a sideboard in my dining room that belonged to my grandmother. She kept it with this method: olive oil and a squeeze of lemon from a real lemon, not a plastic bottle. I keep it the same way. That sideboard is over 80 years old and the wood still glows. I do not believe any of the products in any store have ever offered me something better than what she had in her kitchen already. Always test a small hidden spot first, I'll tell you that, especially on antique or unfinished wood. But on most finished wood furniture, this method does what it has always done: honors the material instead of covering it up. Number 3, the wringer washer and the Monday laundry rhythm. I want to take a moment and step back from the individual tricks and talk about something bigger because I think it matters to the whole story. In the 1930s and 40s, the housewife's weekly schedule was as regular and dependable as the calendar itself. Monday was wash day. Tuesday was iron day. Wednesday was mend and polish. Thursday was errands. Friday was clean. Saturday was bake. Sunday was rest. Every room, every task, every cloth had its day, its order, its place in the week. The wringer washer, that machine with the 2 rubber rollers that you fed the wet clothes through by hand, that machine was the center of Monday. You sorted by color and by fabric. White clothes in hot water. Colored clothes in warm silks and wools in cool. The laundry soap was often homemade in those years. Lye soap grated fine, mixed with 20 Mule Team Borax, which had been a household name since 1891. You'd watch those clothes go through the wringer, flat and steaming, and something about the rhythm of it was satisfying in a way I'm not sure I can explain to someone who has only ever pushed a button. Those clothes were clean, the kind of clean that your bones feel before your nose does, and they lasted because they were washed gently and stored carefully and mended when they needed mending rather than replaced. Number 2, homemade lye soap from the back porch. Now we're getting close to number 1, and I promised you something at the beginning. I promised you the trick that nobody ever put a price on, the one that the soap companies and the cleaning product aisle never wanted you to remember. But before we get there, and we are going to get there, I want to talk about lye soap. Long before there were different soaps for your body, your laundry, your dishes, your floors, your windows, and your car, there was one soap. It was made from 3 things: animal fat, wood ash, and water. The lye came from pouring rainwater over hardwood ashes, letting it seep through slowly into a wooden bucket below. The fat came from the kitchen, from beef tallow or lard, or the fat scraps saved all year in a crock near the back door, waiting for soap-making day. Those 2 things went into a big cast-iron kettle over an outdoor fire and were boiled and stirred for hours until the mixture thickened and sheeted off the paddle like wax. When it was done and cooled in wooden molds or cardboard boxes, you cut it into bars, sometimes with a wire, sometimes with a knife, and that bar of soap cleaned everything. Your body, your clothes, your dishes, your floors, your children, everything. One soap, one pot, 1 day's labor, enough for a year. Women who lived through the Depression in the 1930s made this soap not as a craft project, but as a survival skill. They saved every scrap of fat that came off every meal because fat was money. It was the raw material of cleanliness. To throw it away would have been wasteful beyond imagining. I think about the women who stood over those kettles. I think about the ones who sent their 10-year-old children outside to stir while they kept the fire going and kept the baby from the heat. I think about how much knowledge lived in that one afternoon, the knowledge of lye strength, of fat ratios, of the color and texture that told you the soap was ready. None of it written down, all of it known. And now we reach number 1, the one I promised you at the start, the one that nobody ever put in a commercial, the one that is older than any grocery store, older than any company that ever tried to sell you clean in a bottle. Number 1, opening the windows. I know. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Marie, I waited all this time for that. But hear me out, because this is the one that contains all the others, and it is the one we gave away the most quietly and the most completely. Every morning in a well-kept house of the 1940s and 50s, the first thing a woman did, before the coffee, before the breakfast dishes, before the broom, was open the windows, wide, every room that she was going to clean that day. She threw the sheets back to air. She pulled the curtains to the side. She let the outdoor air move through the house, carrying with it everything that had accumulated overnight. Sunlight came in too, and sunlight, as those women knew in their bones, is nature's bleach. They hung their white things on the line, not just to dry, but to be whitened by the sun in a way that nothing in a bottle can replicate. They knew that fresh air is a deodorizer. They knew that a house that breathes doesn't hold smells the way a closed house does. They knew that dust settles differently in a room with airflow, that mildew doesn't form where the air moves. There was a time before central air conditioning and sealed windows and climate controlled everything, when a house was porous, when the outdoors and the indoors were in conversation with each other. When the smell of your neighbor's lilac bushes could reach your kitchen, and when the clean wind off the fields could do in 20 minutes what no cleaning product can do in a day. We gave that up slowly, one sealed window at a time, one climate control system at a time, one convenience at a time, and we replaced it with products, dozens of them that were trying, none too successfully, to put back what we had thrown away for free. This is what those cleaning tricks were really about. All of them. They were about a relationship with your own home, a daily, hands-on sensory relationship where you knew every surface by touch and every corner by smell and every room by the quality of its light. That relationship was the cleaning trick. The vinegar and the salt and the newspaper and the lemon. Those were just the tools of it. The heart of it was attention, presence, the willingness to know where you lived, and the women who had it, who made it look effortless from the outside, who kept those houses clean and bright and alive on $4 worth of pantry staples. They were not missing something. They were not doing without. They had something we traded away and have been trying to buy back ever since. You know this if you're watching me right now. You know this in a way that doesn't need explaining, because you lived in it, you breathed the air of it. You slept under the quilts that came off, that line smelling like sunlight and wind. You ate off the tables that were cleaned with nothing fancier than hot water and a good cloth. You know the difference between that and now, even if you've never had the words for it, because the knowing lives in your hands and your nose and the part of your chest that tightens a little when you remember. That knowing is yours. Nobody sold it to you. Nobody can take it back. And today you just remembered 15 proofs that it was real. So here's what I want you to do this week. Pick one. Start anywhere. Start with the windows. Start with the baking soda on the carpet. Start with the lemon and the salt on the cutting board. Just do one the old way. See if it doesn't feel like coming home, because that is exactly what it is. And then I want you to come down to the comments and tell me something. Tell me which one your mother swore by or your grandmother. Tell me the trick that was so much a part of the household that nobody thought of it as a trick at all. It was just Tuesday. It was just what you did. It was just how a clean house worked. Tell me about her. I want to hear about the woman who taught you, because every recipe, every method, every piece of that old knowledge has a face behind it, and I want to know hers. Next time, we are going to sit down together and talk about the old food. The recipes that fed a family for almost nothing. The cuts of meat nobody wanted that ended up being the best thing on the table. The meals that felt like Sunday even on a Wednesday. You're not going to want to miss that one. Until then, open a window, let the good air in, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another trip back to yesterday.